Okay, let's dive right into this explainer because we are in the middle of a massive tectonic shift in the software business model right now. Based on some incredible research by Thorsten Meyer on the transition from the cloud era to the AI era, we aren't just talking about slapping a few chatbot features onto existing tools. No, we're looking at how the very foundations of competing, winning, and actually keeping your customers are shifting entirely beneath our feet.
So, what happens when software can actually think? It's a simple, pretty provocative question, but it fundamentally challenges 20 years of established business strategy. For 2 decades, the software as a service, or SaaS playbook, was remarkably simple, right? Your goal was to own the system of record, make switching to a competitor incredibly painful, enjoy those compounding 85% gross margins, and basically let the sheer agony of a system migration keep your customers locked in. Migrating an enterprise database is universally understood to be literally everyone's least favorite weekend project. But what happens when the software itself can just act and execute those agonizing migrations for you?
Here is how we're going to map this all out today. First, the old moat evaporates. Second, two types of stickiness. Third, the valuation divide. Fourth, the four new rules. And fifth, why SaaS still survives.
All right, starting with section 1, the old moat evaporates. A competitive frontier never truly disappears. It really just moves to a new location. Every software category has one. Think back to the shift from on-premise servers to the cloud. The criteria for winning completely changed from selling physical hardware boxes to offering scalable web hosting. Right now, the companies struggling the most are the ones pouring all their energy into defending that old line, entirely missing the fact that the actual battlefield has relocated. The frontier didn't erode, it shifted. And if you don't know where that new frontier is, you are incredibly vulnerable to a competitor who does. For decades, complex software businesses were phenomenal investments for one very human reason. Developers absolutely hated migrating to a new system. A developer builds against a specific interface, accumulates years of application logic, and then moving to a competitor becomes this giant, risky, miserable project. That human difficulty, that was the moat. But here's the thing. AI agents don't feel boredom. They don't get tired. They are exceptionally good at well-specified translation tasks. Suddenly, the job no human wanted to touch becomes just another line item. Imagine an AI agent systematically translating millions of lines of proprietary code or database queries overnight while your team is at home sleeping. When the cost of starting and migrating drops to near zero, the entire criteria for winning a market completely changes.
Which brings us to section 2, two types of stickiness. This is where AI gets completely ruthless. It separates genuine workflow-critical switching costs from the fragile illusion of human inertia. For 20 years, these two things looked identical on a revenue report because they both resulted in super low customer churn. But they are completely different. Real switching costs involve regulatory approval or deep data gravity, where your data is so massive and deeply integrated into core operations that it physically and functionally cannot be moved easily. Customer inertia, on the other hand, is just the human friction of change. It's that, well, we've always used this tool mentality. Because AI agents erase the tedious manual work of migration, if your company's low churn is resting merely on human inertia, an AI agent can dissolve that inertia in a single weekend.
Let's look at how this plays out in the market. Section 3, the valuation divide.
We are currently looking at a massive 55% permanent compression in public SaaS multiples from their 2021 peak, resetting all the way back to 2015 levels. Based on the source material for the year 2026, valuation multiples dropped from a median of around 18x forward revenue all the way down to roughly 6 to 8x. And make no mistake, this is not just a temporary dip. This is a fundamental repricing. Think about what this actually means. If you're a founder or an investor who built a financial model in 2021, assuming those high multiples would last forever, the market has completely stopped paying a premium just because a company operates in the cloud. We're witnessing a violent bifurcation, a tale of two completely different realities happening on the exact same playing field. Investors are pricing exactly which side of the AI frontier a company sits on. On one side, you've got slow-growth legacy software sitting at 2 to 4x forward revenue. On the other side, high-growth AI-native software is commanding 15 to 40x multiples. The sauce label used to be this golden ticket guaranteeing a high valuation. Today, that label kind of means nothing. The market is exclusively rewarding AI-native architecture. And these mind-bending gross figures from vertical AI agents show us that the disruption underneath those multiples is incredibly real. And we can measure it right now in 2026. Look at Sierra, reportedly hitting $100 million in annual recurring revenue in just about 7 quarters.
or Legora doing it in a staggering 18 months. Notice their strategy here. They aren't trying to rip out the massive underlying database system in one go. Instead, they are intelligently peeling off the valuable workflow layers. In practice, that means they aren't replacing the system of record, they're taking over all the daily tasks, the communications, and the workflows that humans used to do on top of that database. So if the old moats are evaporating, how do you actually win? Section 4, the 4 new rules. Transitioning successfully really boils down to mastering 4 fundamental rule changes. Let's walk through them. First off, defensibility. The old moat relied on interface lock-in, forcing users to learn a clunky dashboard so they wouldn't want to bother learning a new one. Now, the premium is entirely on proprietary workflow data. A durable moat today is permissioned access to specific data exhaust, like a hospital's internal clinical notes. A generic AI model straight out of the box simply cannot access or understand that. Second is monetization. Per-seat pricing leaks a massive amount of value when an AI agent becomes your primary user. If an AI replaces 10 human customer service reps and you charge per human seat, your revenue just collapsed. You have to shift to outcome-aligned pricing. You charge per resolved ticket or per completed workflow, regardless of who or what did the actual work. Third is the sales motion. We go from fixed procurement, those long, painful enterprise sales cycles, to clean zero to infinity scaling. Because it's so cheap to experiment with AI agents now, your software needs to cost almost nothing for a customer to try at zero usage. But it has to scale cleanly and profitably as their usage inevitably explodes. And finally, product development. We move from smooth product arcs, where roadmaps were planned out years in advance, to riding the jagged edge of AI. AI capability is notoriously unsmooth. It might be brilliantly capable of complex reasoning one day and absolutely fail at basic math next. Plus, that capability edge moves every few weeks with new model releases. Winners in this era have to intimately understand this jagged frontier and aggressively re-architect their software as the underlying models shift. But before we declare legacy software dead, let's explore Section 5, why SaaS still survives. A reflexive assumption that AI is going to eat absolutely all legacy software is just as wrong as the old assumption that cloud hosting would destroy every single on-premise server. Based on Gartner's estimates for 2030, a massive 1/3 of tools will be completely disrupted or replaced by AI agents. But it is absolutely vital to look at the 2/3 that survive. They survive because their stickiness relies on true regulatory lineage and that real data gravity we talked about earlier. The core systems of record, the massive ERPs, the highly compliant banking databases, they have real physical gravity that an AI agent cannot just magically dissolve. In a lot of these cases, AI agents are going to act as a communication layer on top of incumbent SaaS, rather than fully replacing it. You know, there's a popular concept right now called vibe coding. This idea that a business user can just use natural language to effortlessly generate complex software applications from scratch without knowing a lick of code. But replacing deeply entrenched enterprise systems with vibe-coded apps, it's mostly a myth. Companies aren't going to just chat their way into replacing complex, highly secure databases. Instead, new switching costs are already forming around custom AI agents and deeply encoded institutional knowledge. Enterprises are accumulating fresh switching costs as we speak. The real threat isn't that every customer builds their own software from scratch and SaaS goes extinct. The real threat is that the criteria for choosing software has changed. If you are optimizing your product for the old buying criteria, you are going to lose out to the competitor who is optimizing for the new criteria. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to ask yourself a fundamental question. Is your business optimizing for the cost of leaving or the value of staying? The old frontier was built entirely on making it just too painful to leave. The new frontier is built on a value that you have to re-earn every few weeks as the jagged edge of AI capabilities moves forward. It's a harder game, for sure, but it is a much, much better one, and it is exactly where the next decade of software is going to be won. So, which game are you playing?